Discover the hidden truth. 5 incredible ways communities are inspiring change amid urban collapse. In a neighborhood that felt like it was crumbling beneath its feet, Jack leaned against the worn asphalt of his father's auto shop, feeling the heavy weight of memories wrap itself around him like a shroud. The vibrant laughter of families that once filled the street was now replaced by the eerie whispers of a town on the brink of despair. Jack, a mechanic with grease-stained hands and a heart full of hope, could almost hear his father's voice, echoing the values of hard work and neighborly support. But hope was a flickering candle in a storm, fragile and flickering. As he wiped his brow, Jack took a deep breath, steeling himself for the colossal task ahead. He envisioned a gathering revived together, a day where that lost laughter could echo again, where families would reconnect, and business owners would unite. Families could share food, stories, and love. Flea markets could bustle, music could spill out into the streets. It wasn't just a dream, it was a lifeline. Jack bravely knocked on doors, pitching his idea with unwavering passion. But it wasn't long before the old rivalries reared their ugly heads, fueled by bitterness and prejudices that had festered for too long. Jack felt the sting of rejection more than once. Tension simmered, overshadowed by the agonizing silence of boarded-up storefronts. It was heartbreaking, but Jack pressed on, fueled by a belief that they could rise together. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the days rolled on, Jack faced a crushing blow. City officials, fueled by corporate greed, announced a mandate to shut down their gathering. Anger burned hot within him as he saw defeat flash across the faces of his neighbors' once vibrant spirits now dulled by economic collapse. Jack knew they needed to unite, casting aside old grudges and come together like family in times of trouble. At a crucial city council meeting, Jack rose, his heart pounding in rhythm with a drum of hope. With each word, he painted the vivid tapestry of memories they all shared: the block parties, the Sunday barbecues, even the simple acts of kindness. The room hummed with tension as old connections stirred within them, the laughter, the struggles, the love. His voice echoed, unwavering and pure, igniting something deep within. There was a moment when hope flickered again, and Jack saw it in the eyes of the crowd, recognition, but as the meeting came to a close, uncertainty crept in. Would their wretched fight against the indifference lead to the change they so desperately needed? Jack stood at the edge of an emotional precipice, knowing their battle had only just begun. Will they rise, or will they continue to fall? The answer was waiting out there, just beyond the horizon. Jack stepped out of the council meeting, the weight of uncertainty heavy on his shoulders. The echo of his words still lingered in his ears, but the hopeful energy that had sparked a moment ago now felt fragile. He walked along the cracked pavement, his heart racing as he replayed every face in the crowd. Some had nodded in agreement, while others wore expressions of skepticism, arms crossed tightly. Would his dream amount to anything, or had he simply stirred the pot of disappointment once more? The street felt colder. Shadows loomed as dusk settled in. Jack made his way back to his auto shop, feeling like the lone soldier trudging through a war zone. He hoped the Revive Together event could serve as a catalyst for change, but the odds were stacked against him. As night fell, the small flicker of an idea illuminated his mind amidst the darkness. What if he gathered those who believed in the dream, a core group ready to stand by him? Could they start to chip away at the doubt and create a ripple of positivity? With a newfound purpose, he grabbed his phone and began to text. "Let us meet tomorrow, all of you who want to help." He pressed send and felt a warmth spread within him. The next afternoon, a handful of familiar faces gathered at the shop. There was Maria, the mother of 2 who had lived on the block for years, old Mr. Henderson, who always mended broken chairs when others would toss them aside, and even Sarah, the single mother who loved to bake cookies but had lost faith in the community. They sat on the old benches, nervously fidgeting, a mixture of hope and fear in their eyes. Jack took a deep breath, his mind racing with thoughts of unity and resilience. "We're not just planning an event. We're reigniting a spirit," he said, his voice steady. "It's not just for us, it's for our kids, for the generations that follow. We need to remind people why they fell in love with this place in the first place." A ripple of agreement fluttered through the group. Maria spoke up first, her voice shaky but brave. "I want my children to grow up in a place where they feel safe and loved. We need to show everyone that we can be strong together." Nods followed, and one by one, ideas flowed. They talked about food trucks showcasing local cuisines, a car wash for charity, games for kids, and music that wrapped around the streets like a warm hug. Jack encouraged every suggestion, letting their excitement build, feeling hope swell in his chest. As they sketched out plans on the greasy paper of an old auto repair order, laughter rang through the shop. It felt like magic. The air was charged with possibility, their combined laughter drowning out the sadness that had wrapped itself around the neighborhood. But just as Jack began to believe in their collective strength, a knock on the shop door broke the moment. His heart sank as he recognized the silhouette standing outside. It was Fred, the owner of the neighboring auto shop, known for being critical and adversarial. "What are you doing here?" Jack called, his voice reflecting both wariness and curiosity. With arms crossed, Fred stepped into the light, a scowl etched deep into his face. "I heard you're planning some big gathering. Count me out, but you'll need to hear my side of things before this gets out of hand." Jack's stomach twisted at the unexpected turn. Fred's presence brought back old rivalries, the very thing they had hoped to overcome. As tension filled the air, the group's laughter faded, replaced by an uneasy silence. In that moment, Jack realized this journey would not just be about galvanizing the community, it would also mean confronting the ghosts of the past. Would they stand together, or allow old grievances to pull them apart? The answer loomed like a storm cloud on the horizon. What would Fred reveal that could change everything once again? Jack felt the atmosphere shift as Fred stood before them, a dark shadow haunting the hopeful light they'd just built. The vibrant energy in the room had dropped to a whisper, and he could sense everyone's unease. Fred had a way of commanding attention, even when it wasn't he deserved. "What do you mean, your side of things?" Jack asked, struggling to keep his voice steady amidst the tension that pressed in from all sides. The gathered group exchanged furtive glances, heady expectation mixed with the fear of Fred's impending words. "Look," Fred began, his tone sharper than the edge of a broken glass. "I've been watching you lot plan your little get-together. But I know what happens when people get their hopes up. You want to stir the pot. Fine, but you need to face reality. This place isn't the same anymore. It's falling apart." Maria opened her mouth to speak, but Fred held a hand up. "No, let me finish. Sure, there was a time when this neighborhood thrived, but those days are gone. People don't care about community anymore, they care about themselves. You really think a few food trucks and games will bring anyone back?" A chill crawled up Jack's spine. He recalled his own battles with just that feeling, the creeping doubt that settled into the bones of the place he loved. Fred continued, "You're living in a fantasy. It's not your fault, but you need to wake up." Jack glanced at his friends, their expressions straddling hope and despair. He felt the urge to fight back. "Maybe you're right about some things, Fred, but what's the alternative? Just give up? Let this place die without a fight? We can't just stand by and watch our home disappear. We're trying to inspire change." Fred scoffed, leaning back against the wall. "Inspire change?" His laughter was harsh. "By bringing everyone together for a party? What a joke." The air thickened with Fred's cynicism, but Jack could see the flickers of resolve in his crew. He shifted in his stance, refusing to give in to the cloud of negativity. "We're not just throwing a party. We're reminding people what this community can be. We need connections, Fred." He faced Maria, Mr. Henderson, and Sarah, who now leaned forward, eyes wide, ready to attach themselves to Jack's words. Supported by their shared desire, he pressed on. We can bring back that spirit, the love people had for this neighborhood. Don't you remember when families came together? When we pitched in to help each other? It can happen again. Fred's expression softened briefly, revealing glimpses of something buried deep inside him. Jack dared to hope. Maybe you could help us, Fred. Don't you want to see this place thrive too? There are people here, people willing to fight. Join us instead of tearing us down. A silence punctuated by the sound of the ticking clock filled the room, each second heavy with anticipation. Fred's posture shifted subtly, as if debating whether a part of him still wanted to be part of this community. Let me think about it, he finally said, arms still crossed, but now with an air of uncertainty. The group exchanged glances, sensing a shift, no longer just isolation or division. Let us meet again tomorrow, Jack said, voice rising in excitement. We have ideas to share, plans to make. And Fred, it's your choice on whether you want to keep fighting against us or stand with us. As Fred left, the door swung shut behind him with a resonating click, echoing in the hearts of those left in the room. The air buzzed with a mix of hope and lingering doubt. Jack's heart thudded loudly. Can we really change his mind? He wondered. Could they find the cracks in Fred's harsh exterior and reveal the glimmer of community spirit still inside him? Tomorrow, they would find out. And with the burden of skepticism still swaying in the balance, Jack knew the test was just beginning. The sun peeked through the thin curtains of the small community center, illuminating the tired faces of Jack's friends as they gathered again. It was a day brimming with anticipation and the promise of hope, yet there was a heaviness in the air. What if Fred had decided to dismiss them? What if he turned his back on this opportunity to rise together? Okay, guys, let us rally here, Jack urged, a mix of excitement and nervousness spilling out. Today could change everything. Maria adjusted her chair, a nervous habit that hadn't gone away. Do you really think he'll show up? I mean, Fred has a reputation for being, well, Fred. Just because he can be a jerk doesn't mean there isn't a good part of him buried somewhere, Jack said, tapping the table to punctuate his determination. We've got to give him a chance. Mr. Henderson shuffled in, a glimmer of optimism evident despite the pull of doubt that kept chasing away his hope. You're right, Jack. People can surprise you, especially when they see others uniting for a cause larger than themselves. One by one, their voices chimed in, the tension spilling away as they shared ideas. The walls of the room, usually silent, began to hum with possibilities. They bounced around plans for food trucks, a community garden, and even workshops teaching kids skills their parents had long forgotten. Imagine this place thriving again, Sarah said, her eyes lighting up. Families gathering to celebrate, but then the door creaked open, and in walked Fred, his demeanor different. Jack could see the cautious curiosity etched across Fred's face as he stepped forward, glancing around the room with narrowed eyes. Looks like I'm not the only one dreaming, Fred remarked, his tone softer, almost unguarded. What's the plan, then? Jack asked, eager to bridge the gap. You still have the chance to be part of something real, Fred. Fred didn't immediately respond. Instead, he examined each person, lingering on the hopeful faces, absorbing their energy. It was a shift that felt surreal. Jack's heart raced, realizing they might actually pierce through Fred's hardened exterior. I've been thinking, Fred began, folding his arms again, but it was a less defensive posture this time. You really believe this can work, huh? That you can change how people feel about this place? Absolutely, Jack replied, passion pouring from his voice. We can make them feel again. The connections we can create could be the spark. Fred nodded slowly. Okay, but I want to be involved. Not just as a critic. I want to know what you've done to get people on board. Jack exhaled, relief washing over him. We're meeting with the local businesses next. We need their support. Every single person counts. The group leaned in closer, energized. Fred, uncharacteristically invested, began to share his knowledge of the area's history, the ups and downs that had shaped their community. His words brought a fresh perspective, blending past lessons with their hopeful dreams. As they flipped through notebooks of ideas, flipping through pages of excitement, Jack felt the tide turning. There was something intoxicating about how they, all different, were becoming intertwined. Yet as laughter and new plans filled the room, Fred's expression shifted again. His brow furrowed, a shadow crossing over his features, a flicker of doubt, perhaps. "What if it doesn't go as you hope?" he asked, his voice suddenly serious. "What if trying to spark the community just brings even more disappointment?" Hearing that question hung in the air, Jack's heart raced. Disappointment. The fear of failure was a heavy weight, tightening around them all. But he also held on to something deeper, the notion that without risk, there could be no reward. "Sometimes," Jack said, meeting Fred's gaze squarely, "it's not about avoiding disappointment. It's about fighting for what matters, even when the outcome isn't certain." Together. Fred studied him for a moment, emotions flickering across his face. For the first time, his walls seemed to weaken. Jack's breath caught. What would Fred decide next? Would the remnants of cynicism cave to this newfound hope, or would he retreat into the comfort of skepticism? But as the moment stretched on, they all held their breath, waiting. The silence in the room stretched like a taut string. Fred shifted, the weight of his decision palpable in the air. Jack felt his heart beat faster, the quiet tension a living thing. Would Fred choose to engage, to let them in, or back away into his familiar patterns? Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Fred broke the silence with a hesitant smile. "All right, let us see what you've got." The softness in his voice surprised everyone, especially Jack. As the energy shifted, laughter filled the space again. Jack felt a wild surge of hope. Together, they dove into discussions about the future. They debated creative names for the initiative and how to best pitch it to the local businesses. Fred, finding his footing, shared strategies from past projects he'd worked on, his insights sparking enthusiasm and fresh ideas. "This could really work," Sarah whispered to Maria, nudging her elbow. Maria's eyes sparkled with apprehension and excitement all at once. Jack roamed the room, feeling the buzz of potential in every corner. His friends had shifted from nervousness to a fierce camaraderie. They had forged a collective identity, a group bound not just by dreams, but by the struggle they shared and the hope they were now culturing. Fred leaned over to Jack, lowering his voice. "You know, I used to think my role here was to ensure the reality didn't deviate too far from potential. But maybe it's time I let go of that." Jack smiled. "That's the spirit. This isn't just about avoiding failure. It's about embracing hope." The planning session evolved, ideas too fast to write down spilling forth. Suddenly, the mood felt infectious, vibrant. They were crafting a shared vision, igniting old connections and promising new ones. As the hours passed, the sun hung lower in the sky, casting golden beams that streamed through the windows. The kind of glow that made you believe anything was possible. Laughter bounced around the room, creating a warm backdrop against the hard work ahead. Yet, in the midst of this buoyancy, Fred suddenly froze, his face going pale. The laughter dimmed, and all eyes turned toward him. "I just remembered something. An investors' meeting," he stammered. "What's that?" Jack asked, sensing a shift. "It's a big deal," Fred explained, his confidence slipping. "If I don't show up to this, I could lose everything again." Jack's stomach dropped. Fred's vulnerability stood in stark contrast to the hopeful plans they were sketching. The room thickened with tension, the reality of their ambition suddenly daunting. What if Fred hesitated, glancing at each of them? What if I brought this dream to that meeting instead? What if I asked for help to make it happen? It was a bold idea, but Jack felt the weight of uncertainty settle over them again. Could they really rally support on such a grand scale? Absolutely. "We can't just talk about dreaming, let's show everyone what we're capable of," Jack exclaimed, but doubt crept back in. Would they be ready? Fred nodded thoughtfully. You're right. If I'm going to pull this together, I'll need all of you. The flame of hope flickered in Jack's chest as Fred leaned in closer, eyes brightening with renewed ambition. But beneath the surface of hope and excitement loomed another worry. What if their dreams were too grand? What if taking this leap led to a harder fall than they were ready for? Jack caught Sarah's worried glance and felt the communal pulse of fear begin to fester. Would Fred truly share this vision, or was this a fleeting moment fueled by early confidence? With decisions hanging in the air, Jack knew that the path ahead might be steeper than they imagined. They were on the brink of something transformative, but what sacrifices would they have to make, and who would really be willing to fight for it? As the meeting wrapped up, Jack looked around at his friends. Would they stand firm against the raging winds of reality soon to break upon them? The clock ticked on, and with it the realization hit, the real work was just beginning. The hum of excitement slowly dwindled as Fred stood at the center, processing their discussion. His brow furrowed in thought, the weight of what lay ahead sinking deeper into his gut. The golden rays from the dusk light flickered across his face, illuminating a mixture of determination and fear. Jack took a deep breath, fighting the anxiety that threatened to cloud his own resolve. He approached Fred. Hey, don't overthink it. This is your chance to really make a difference. We believe in you. Fred met his gaze, but uncertainty still flickered behind his eyes. You really think I can sell this dream to those investors? What if they tear it apart? Jack's stomach nodded, but he pressed on. If you show them what we have, your passion, they won't resist. You're not alone in this. We're all in. Maria chimed in, her voice steady, yet tinged with nervousness. And you can use our ideas. We'll help you. We'll create a pitch that they can't ignore. A smile broke through Fred's anxiety. All right, let us do this. Let us show them what we can do. The shift in energy was palpable. Everyone leaned in closer, catching fire from Fred's newfound spirit. They began brainstorming, tossing around concepts and sketches, the room abuzz with creative energy. Ideas bounced like tennis balls in a heated match. What if they mapped out the potential impact? What if they included personal stories from community members? Jack felt the electricity in the air. Let us show them how this initiative can transform lives. Give it a human touch. I can talk about my grandmother and the way this community supported her, Sarah responded passionately, already deep into her memories. This brought a flurry of ideas as everyone shared personal anecdotes that sparked a deeper connection to the project. As they built their vision layer by layer, Fred became more animated, confidence shining through the cracks of his initial doubt. This isn't just about numbers. It's about heart. We need to connect, show them why it matters. Exactly. Jack beamed, seeing the passion return to Fred's eyes. Let us highlight everything we've learned together, every hardship we've faced. Hours melted away like ice in the sun. Laughter mixed with serious discussions as they crafted visuals, stories, and statistics into a compelling narrative. Fred was a man transformed, illuminating ideas with every word that left his lips. They were moving mountains, piecing together something extraordinary, but then, amidst the whirlwind of creativity, the shadows crept back in. Questions lingered unspoken. What if the investors rejected them? What if they faced judgment instead of validation? The dream could crash, the dreamers could fall. Would they be able to hold each other up? As night fell outside, Jack caught a glimpse of Fred, shoulders hunched, momentarily lost in thought again. Fred, remember, for every no, there's a chance for a yes. We'll get there together. Fred nodded, uncertainty still flickering in his eyes. Just then, a text buzzed from his pocket, a reminder of the investors' meeting looming just days away. Let's set a timeline, Fred said, pulling himself back into the moment. We'll meet every evening until then. We'll rehearse and perfect this pitch. No stone left unturned. The energy in the room surged again, mixing fear and hope, igniting their unified purpose. Together, echoed through the room, binding them tighter as the uncertainty drew near. As they laid out their strategy, the clock moved on relentlessly. The moment of truth approached, and no one could shake off the apprehension that settled like dust in the corners of their minds. What if they failed? Would they become another example of dashed hopes in the face of reality? Jack's heart raced as they wrapped up their session. They were on the brink of something monumental, yet the path ahead was fraught with unpredictability. "Let us do this," Fred whispered determinedly as they prepared to leave. "We're just getting started, right?" But as they stepped out into the cool night air, something deeper tugged at Jack. What if their journey unveiled more than they intended? Could their aspirations shatter together if they weren't careful? With nerves buzzing and hope thick in the air, they walked into the darkness, hearts tethered to the light that dared to guide them forward. The next few days felt like an eternity. Each evening, the group gathered in the cramped conference room, their creative sanctuary. The initial excitement had morphed into a fierce urgency, their minds racing with ideas and strategies. As the meeting times piled up, so too did the weight of anticipation. Fred stood at the whiteboard, markers scattered around him like colorful confetti. He stared at the chaotic mess of plans and sketches. "This is it, everyone," he announced, his voice steady but laced with tension. "We're not just showing our project. We're giving them a glimpse of hope, something they can believe in." Maria nodded, her brows furrowed in concentration as she shuffled through notes. "What about emphasizing the community's dedication? People need to feel the connection to the lives we want to touch." Jack chimed in, "Absolutely. We should highlight the stories of resilience. The struggles, the triumphs. It's not just about selling an idea, it's about inviting them into our experience." He felt his pulse quicken with each new revelation. As they fine-tuned the narrative, Fred couldn't shake the tightness in his chest. Each time they rehearsed, a new layer of doubt crept in. What if investors didn't see the vision? Wouldn't all their hard work feel in vain? He looked around the room at his friends. A blend of fear and fierce determination radiated from their faces, reminding him of the very core of why they started. "Don't forget," Sarah interjected, glancing up from her laptop. "Every successful initiative has a beginning. We have to tell them how it all started. The adversity. The passion. The belief that change is possible." Her eyes shone with a fervent light. Fred's heart swelled at her enthusiasm. They all had their reasons for being there, reasons rooted deep in the community they cherished. Yet amid this creative frenzy, a shadow loomed just outside their discussion, an undercurrent of doubt that neither could fully confront. The day of reckoning was swiftly approaching. It hung over them like a dark cloud, heavy with uncertainty. As the final rehearsal neared, Jack brought the group back to focus. "All right, what's the one takeaway we want them to leave with?" His voice held both urgency and sincerity. Fred looked around the room, feeling the weight of their gaze. "We want them to see that we're not just proposing a project. We're building a movement. A community that believes in second chances. Every no can guide us to a yes that matters." His voice cracked slightly, but he pushed through. "We make a difference together." Nods of agreement surged around the group. Their shared resolve electrified the air, binding them together more tightly, erasing the lurking doubts, if only for that moment. But as they concluded that evening, Fred felt that familiar dread creep back. What if their ambitions led to heartbreak? Could they withstand the cruel judgments of investors who saw only the bottom line? The night before the meeting brought an unexpected heaviness, as Fred lay in bed staring up at the ceiling. Memories of community gatherings, shared struggles, and the warmth of human connection flooded his mind. What if they succeeded? What if this was the change they had always dreamed of? Morning arrived with the sky a dull gray, reflecting Fred's tumultuous emotions. He gathered with the team one last time before heading to the meeting, each of them dressed in their best attire, determination stitched into their outfits. The car ride felt short but loaded with unspoken concerns. As they approached the towering glass building, Fred's heart raced. "We can do this," Jack said, breaking the silence as they stepped out. Fred took a deep breath, letting it fill him with courage. Together, he echoed, but a nagging thought tugged at him. Could they really embrace what lay ahead? Would their united front crack under the pressure? As they pushed through the revolving door, hope and fear twisted within him. What awaited them would shape not only their dreams but the dreams of their community too. And for the first time, Fred wondered, was he ready to face not just the investors, but what it meant to truly change lives? The conference room buzzed with a different energy as they stepped inside. Fred could feel the air crackling with nervous excitement. The transformation in the atmosphere felt palpable, as if the very walls were holding their breath, waiting for the moment they would step into the spotlight. "Let us do a quick run-through," Fred suggested, trying to ground himself. He could see Sarah fiddling with her note cards, her body tense but ready. Maria sat upright, her voice steady as she reminded them of the key aspects they needed to drive home. Jack paced back and forth, his fingers tapping against his thigh, a physical manifestation of the anxiety they all felt. "Okay, everyone knows their parts." Fred glanced between his friends, needing the assurance that they were all in sync. He had to believe that their collective strength could overcome anything that they practiced. Fred felt a knot in his stomach tighten. Each word they spoke brought their narrative to life, but it was soon overshadowed by the reality of the investors who would be listening, people he imagined sitting in suits, arms crossed, ready to shoot them down. "Remember," Fred said, his voice rising, "the audience needs to connect with the journey. We aren't just sharing statistics, we are sharing lives, voices, and stories. They need to feel it." When it was his time to present, he stepped forward, feeling the heat of multiple eyes on him. He opened his mouth, but his voice wavered at first. But he looked down at the faces of his team, saw the determination and bravery mirrored inside them, and steadied himself. "Imagine a neighborhood where potential is harnessed, where kids grow up with hope instead of despair," he began. The words flowed more easily, ignited by his passion. "We've listened to the community, fought through obstacles, and we're here to give them a chance to rise up." When they finished, a silence washed over the room. Fred searched the faces of his team, each one reflecting the tension that gripped them. Had they convinced themselves enough? The clock ticked audibly, reminding them that time was slipping away. "Okay, we're ready," Maria exclaimed, almost too cheerfully. But Fred knew better. It was a mask, a shield against the swirling doubts. In the waiting area outside the conference room, the tension seemed thicker, almost suffocating. They could hear muffled voices, the sound of heels clacking, and chairs scraping across the floor. Each sound seemed a reminder of their impending judgment. Sarah's voice pierced through his thoughts. He turned to her. "Whatever happens in there, remember why we're doing this. We're not just fighting for funding. We're fighting for every soul in our community." He nodded, squeezing her shoulder lightly, feeling the warmth spread, fueling him with courage. "Right," he said, his voice firm, "this is bigger than us." As they were called into the room, Fred felt a mixture of adrenaline and anxiety course through him. The sleek conference table gleamed under the bright lights, the investors' faces a blur of scrutiny and expectation. Fred's heart thundered as he took a seat. He exchanged glances with his team again. They were in this together, come what may. As he prepared to speak, a thought struck him, a flicker of doubt danced in the back of his mind. What if they were judged not on the heart of their message but on the packaging? With each breath, he reminded himself to focus. He had to believe in their shared purpose. He opened his mouth to begin, ready to unveil the dream they all held so dear, but just then, the head investor raised an eyebrow, a knowing smirk creeping across his face. "So, tell us why we should care." Fred's heart dropped. Those words hung over him like an anvil. Was this their moment to break through the walls, or had they unknowingly walked into a trap? The stakes were about to rise, and he had to find the words to break through the doubt. Did they have what it takes to not only convince these strangers but to truly inspire change? Fred's mind raced as he processed the question. The room felt like it shrank, the fluorescent lights buzzing harshly overhead. He could feel the collective weight of his team's hopes resting on his shoulders. Sarah's encouraging smile flickered in his memory, pulling him back. All they had shared, all the late nights, the sacrifices they had made, it was time to harness that. Drawing in a breath, Fred straightened. You should care because these aren't just numbers or policies. They are lives. Lives that can be transformed, he said firmly. He could hear his own voice echoing in his head, each word building upon the last. Think about it. Every statistic represents a child who could succeed, a family that deserves a chance, a community striving for something better. He glanced at his team, who were leaning in closer, encouragement radiating from them. Maria nodded slightly, a reassuring gesture that urged him on. In our community, every moment is steeped in potential, but also in struggle. It's not just about what we can do, it's about what we can do together. The investors exchanged glances, some leaning back, others leaning in, intrigued. Fred sensed uncertainty beginning to shift toward curiosity. The journey we've taken isn't easy, but every step matters. Through the struggles, we've forged connections, built trust, Fred continued, his voice steady as hope ignited within him. There's a program we started last summer, a mentoring initiative. We paired local business leaders with high school students. The results? Students reporting increased confidence and future goals. Jack chimed in, coming alive. And that's just the beginning. We've organized community workshops that empower people to start small businesses. They're not looking for handouts anymore, they're investing in their own dreams. That's what you want to fund, isn't it? Fred saw the investors' eyes widen slightly, the gears turning in their heads. This was no longer just a pitch, it was an invitation to make a real difference. Sarah took her chance, stepping forward. Think of what happens next, the ripple effect. When one person finds success, they inspire others. We're not just looking to solve immediate issues, we're creating a sustainable future. You can be a part of this change. The head investor remained silent, the smirk gone from his face. Instead, there was concentration, far better than indifference. Fred's heart soared. They were planting seeds, and if nurtured properly, it could bloom beyond their expectations. But, the head investor started, leaning forward now. How do you plan to keep this momentum? What happens when the funding dries up? The question hung in the air, an invisible weight pressing down again. Fred exchanged looks with his team, they were ready for this. They had thought of every angle, every obstacle. Fred drew on every ounce of confidence he had left. We've designed our programs so they are community-driven. We're not building a dependency, we're building independence. This is a long-term strategy, a partnership. He could see it starting to click with the investors. They were less combative now, more engaged. Fred held his breath, praying for a breakthrough. Isn't that what you want? He said, his voice low but passionate. To be part of something larger than just today's profits. To create a legacy. A few murmurs rippled through the room. The atmosphere shifted once more, warmth beginning to seep into that rigidity. What if we take a closer look at this mentoring program? The investor asked, his tone now less skeptical. Fred's pulse quickened. This was at the moment they needed to build on. Could this be their way in? With determination radiating through every fiber of his being, Fred knew they had ignited a spark. He could almost hear the echoes of hope for their community, each voice ringing clear in his heart. The walls they had faced seemed to crack just a bit. Did they truly hold the potential to inspire change, or was this just the first step in a complex journey ahead? What awaited them on this uncertain path? The air was thick with anticipation as Fred stepped into the conference room, the memories of their journey swirling in his mind. Each face around the table reflected a mixture of hope and concern. Together, they had transformed doubt into purpose, together, they were going to make history. Thank you for your time, Fred began, the weight of the moment pressing against him like a heavy blanket. He stole a glance at Jack, Maria, Sarah, and Mr. Henderson, all sitting behind him, their presence grounding him. They were more than a team, they were family now. What we're proposing is not just a dream, it's a spirit reborn in our community. We've seen firsthand how our collaborative efforts can breathe life back into this neighborhood, he continued, his voice steady and resolute. Each initiative we've started has fostered connection, a bridge to a shared future. He paused, gauging the room, feeling the flicker of their interest. He remembered the first day they sat down, filled with uncertainty, and now here they were, facing the very investors that could change everything. Jack chimed in, it's not enough to just show numbers. We're capturing the heart of our stories, the triumphs and struggles of families like ours. He shared how their mentoring program had not just transformed individual lives but reinvigorated a sense of hope. When kids see someone believing in them, it plants a seed. They blossom in ways we never anticipated. The head investor leaned closer, curiosity gleaming in his eyes. And what's next? If this community thrives, how will you sustain it? Sarah jumped in confidently, we're developing local partnerships that empower our community leaders. Every effort is designed with longevity in mind. We're not just asking for funds, we're building futures. The atmosphere shifted again, the tension waning as Fred felt the gears start to turn in their minds, their skepticism melting away like snow in the spring sunshine. He sensed the possibility blooming, hope unfurling its petals. We want you to not just invest in us but to invest in the community. Each contribution becomes an anchor, growing roots in our neighborhood. Nods of agreement illuminated the group's faces. What once felt like a weighty burden now felt light, possibility sparkled in the air. Fred moved to the whiteboard, sketching out their vision. Here's our roadmap. We're targeting success through mentorship, workshops, and collaboration with local businesses. It's time for the community to reclaim its pride and narrative. The investors exchanged glances, and Fred's heart raced. He could feel the pendulum of doubt swing towards hope. Now, let me show you the faces behind this journey, he said, pulling out a small laptop while revealing stories and testimonials from those affected by their initiative. He played a video featuring community members sharing their dreams and struggles. The heartfelt gratitude and emotion spilled off the screen like vibrant paint, wrapping the investors in the warmth of genuine connection. As the video played, Fred watched the investors' expressions shift from skepticism to intrigue. He could see their icy facades begin to melt amid the heartfelt stories. The power of their community's resilience rang true, creating ripples of belief. When the video ended, silence reigned for a fleeting moment. Then the head investor spoke, his voice resonating with newfound respect. This is impactful. I see depth and commitment in your message. The air was electric, Fred's heart surged with joy. This is only the beginning. Together, we can turn the tides, inspire change, and ignite hope. Our community is ready to rise. After a careful discussion, one by one, the investors expressed a shared interest excitedly. They began to brainstorm possibilities, how many initiatives they could support, the depth of their investment. Conversations flourished. In that moment, as laughter and animated discussions replaced doubt, Fred felt a wave of emotion wash over him, and he realized the true power of unity. The pain, the tests, and the failures they faced now melted away, replaced by a shared commitment that bridged their differences. As the meeting came to a close, Fred glanced at his friends, their faces shining with determination and an undercurrent of awe. They had faced their fears, tackled the doubts head-on, and emerged on the other side. Together, we're unstoppable, he whispered to Jack, who nodded with a wide smile. A grin spread across Sarah's and Maria's faces too, each reflecting that same source of strength. Leaving the building, Fred felt the sun's warmth envelop them, a transforming light on the horizon of a brighter tomorrow. Together, they had not only pitched an idea, they had shared a dream. Fred took a deep breath, his heart full. In that moment, even the shadows of uncertainty felt like wisps of clouds clearing away, revealing the brilliance of the future they could create together. They were no longer just individuals. They were a community bound by purpose, passion, and love. now was the time to take that spark and kindle it into a flame. As they walked down the street, laughter spilled out across the pavement, echoing in the rhythm of the life they reclaimed. An urgency buzzed within Fred's heart. This was a calling. "Let us get to work," he exclaimed, summoning his friends to move forward with their plans. They had a journey ahead of them, one paved with challenges, but together they would illuminate a path brighter than any obstacle. This was only the beginning, and together they would rise. Now, as you stand with us at the end of this inspirational tale, you need to subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support, so leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Don't forget to comment with your reactions and feelings about this incredible ending. And remember, you must share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. True fans know the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.